Well, welcome everyone. Good afternoon. My name is Jeremy Pelletier, and I'm the Executive Director of NOFA. Welcome to our 44th Annual Winter Conference. Thank you for being here. For those who have come back to the conference year and year again, who here has been to the first 10 years of the conference? All right. So I think you remember it being a lot different with potluck and, yeah. I wish I could have been there. I wasn't born yet. Sorry, I'll move on. Before anything else, I want to acknowledge the sponsors who made today's conference possible. We have Farm Credit East, Vermont Compost, CT Greenhouse Structures and Supplies, New Morning Market, Connecticut Public, the USDA Transition to Organic Partnership Program, and the Connecticut Land Conservation Council. So every year we sort of glean support from companies around Connecticut, around New England, and they give us generous support, and without them, we wouldn't be able to put on this conference. So when you shop or use our services, please do let them know that you are thankful for their support of NOFA. Some exciting news this year. I want to take a moment to talk about this because it is pretty big news for organic growers in Connecticut. The CT Grown label, which we all know, has been around for many, many years. And it's a trusted mark that tells consumers this food was grown right here in our state. But up until now, there was really no way for certified organic farmers to distinguish themselves within that brand. You were CT Grown, but there's nothing on that label that said organic. So that changes. Our partnership with the Connecticut Department of Agriculture and Yukon Extension, we've launched the CT Grown Certified Organic label. It's a dedicated mark for USDA certified organic farms and producers operating here in Connecticut. The purpose of this logo is to help certified organic farmers enhance their product packaging, websites, and social media. This increases consumer awareness of CT Grown organic products. Now, this matters because consumers are already looking for local and organic, and now our growers have a way to speak directly to both. So after many years as a respected label for identifying Connecticut-grown products, CT Grown is now launching that specific label for recognizing USDA-certified growers. To support the rollout, we, along with Yukon Extension, are offering free one-on-one marketing and branding assistance to certified organic and transitioning farms. So if you'd like to request access to the logo or to connect with that support, you can scan the QR code on the slide or visit ctgrown.org/organic. All right, I'd like to introduce some of the staff, the team behind this conference and all the work we do here at NOFA. Dr. Kimberly Stoner, our Director of Advocacy, sitting out front here. We have Laura Davis, who I don't think is here today. She's our Organic Certification Assistance Coordinator. Jennifer Schaefer, who's our Organic Land Care Director. Dana Jackson, the man behind this conference, and our Communications Director. Back there. And then Monique Bosch, who some of you have been in her workshop today, our soil health educator. So thank you all for working with me. So 2025 was a really, really challenging year. And I want to be pretty straightforward about that. When the federal funding freeze froze all of our grant funding in the spring, we had to furlough the full-time staff. We went to part-time. We had to eliminate some part-time positions. There's a real question about the future of the organization. What kept us going, actually, was the response from our members and our supporters. Donations came in at a critical moment, and without exaggeration, prevented our closure. Those positions were all restored in the late fall with the grant funding when that was unfrozen as well. So I want to say to everyone here and to everyone who supports NOFA, thank you. That support truly made a difference and can't be overstated. Despite all of that, here's what we accomplished this year. In the Organic Land Care program, we still held 3 accreditation courses, trained 56 land care professionals. We have 325 accredited professionals, accredited organic land care professionals across 32 states. We have new partnerships that were forged in Maine, Hawaii, and Pennsylvania, and we launched a new AOLCP M-Ready designation, and 30 new businesses added to our Organic Land Care Guide. And that's pretty much all the work of Jennifer Schaefer on her own. In soil health, we trained 36 students in microscopy analysis across 7 sessions at farms throughout the Northeast. A partnership with the CTRC&D to deploy the compost tea trailer at 5 farms across Connecticut, and a series of soil health and composting workshops. And of course, the CT certified organic label, which you just heard about. In 2025, for policy, which is Kim Stoner's work here, we were active at the legislature throughout the year. We testified in support of the CT Environmental Rights Amendment, a farmland access program, restrictions on neonicotinoids, the CT Grown for CT Kids, and Local Food for Schools incentive program, a fund for weather-related crop losses, no-cost school meals for low-income students, and legislation to restrict corporate purchases of farmland through our partnership with the National Family Farmer Coalition. We also testified in opposition to exempting cookware from the PFAS ban and a provision that would have limited, unlimited challenges to new housing developments. Through the USDA Transition to Organic Partnership Program, working alongside PCO, Pennsylvania Certified Organic, NICFA, the New Connecticut Farm Alliance, and UConn, we've paired 16 mentor-mentee sets since 2023 and provided technical assistance to 19 farms. 8 farms completed full organic certification, including the first organic poultry processing facility in Connecticut and the only currently certified organic apple orchard in Connecticut. Both of them came through our mentorship program. And that's really exciting news because there's been a trend over the last several years of Connecticut losing certified organic farms. So this work is working to reverse that trend. And so now we have 8 new certified organic farms in Connecticut. Looking ahead to 2026, again, the Organic Land Care program, we're going to run 3 accreditation courses with the goals to train 75 or more new professionals and expand our reach to further states. For soil health, we have added additional microscopy courses coming this spring and summer, a new multi-course series called Soil Health 3 Ways, and the launch of NOFA Learn and Share hands-on workshop and equipment sharing events at farms around the state focused on forest farming, seed collection and sharing, and soil health education. For the Transition to Organic Partnership Program, we conclude this in fall of 2026, and we'll be completing our final mentor-mentee pairings and continuing to support new farms through their certification process. For advocacy, I got behind slides here. For policy and advocacy, looking forward to 2026. These priorities include a climate superfund bill that would hold polluters accountable for climate change, including farm and crop losses. Funding to staff farmland access program at CT DOAC, modernize pesticide reporting, expanding the farmers market nutrition program to farm stands and mobile markets, and local representation on the CT study council. We're also continuing to work on the CT Connecticut Environmental Rights Amendment, partnering with newly formed CT Food Sovereignty Collective on a permanent food fund and $10 million in bonding for food relief organizations, and maintain federal level pressure for a long overdue national farm bill. All right, so I'd like to also recognize our board of directors, President Dan Litwin, Vice President Patrick Paran, somewhere, Secretary Dana Jackson, and board members Steve Monod, Batavia Harrison, Dakota Rudolph Eastman, Frida Virago, and Caitlin Kimball. So thank you for your continued service to this organization. So I'm going to bring up our president, Diane Litwin, who's going to be holding our board election for this year.
Thanks, Jeremy. Hello, everybody. I know you're all excited for our annual meeting. Let's make this very quick. So first, we have a wonderful group of board members that have been serving this organization anywhere from like the past 2 to 10 years. Board members serve 3-year terms, and our board is divided into several groups such that each year one group is up for re-election. And our beautiful board members, Dana and Batavia, are up for re-election. Can I have a motion to approve the slate of directors for re-election? Thank you. Great, second. Lovely, all in favor? Thank you. Beautiful. And if you're interested in joining our board, come see me, come see Steve, Dana, anyone else that you saw on that previous page. We'd love to talk to you and welcome you to the board. Thank you.
Thank you, Matt.
So, let's see. Okay. Before we move on, I wanted to take a moment to welcome Bill Dusing's family here. We have Suzanne, Dan, and Kingston, as well as Casey. Bill Dusing is CT NOFA's founder. He was a farmer, an educator, and one of the most committed advocates for organic and sustainable agriculture in the region. His influence on connecting agriculture endures every day, and it's in that spirit that we present the award that bears his name. I want to take a moment to listen to Bill in his own words.
Agriculture is, I think, agriculture and food is one of the most powerful tools for making social change. So I think that people are realizing that, it's our health and the health of the earth, and we've got that's what NOFA's been talking about for 40 years, and we don't need maybe NOFA to be bigger to talk about that, but we need everybody to be talking about that. And I think NOFA has had a very large part in influencing that conversation in that direction. Through my lifetime, the greatest pleasure has been dealing directly with the beauty and productivity and abundance of this planet. And unless we all appreciate that, I think, we're going to be in big trouble. I think we are in big trouble, but, that's our hope, is to realize the value and the beauty of what the earth does for us.
Okay, I'd like to invite Dr. Kimberly Stoner to present this year's award.
Thank you, Jeremy, and thank you to the Bill Dusing Organic Living on the Award Committee, Suzanne Dusing, Eileen Hopper, Michael Baker, Mike Nadu, and Dina Brewster. Laura McKinney and Stephanie Berluti. Okay, sorry, I'm back to get the right list. Okay. So, I'm pleased to announce that the Bill Dusing Living on the Earth award will go to Steve Monod. Widely known as Farmer Steve. A little bit more about Bill Dusing. Bill Dusing was the founding president of Connecticut NOFA and later the first executive director. The award that Steve is established before Bill's passing in 2018 to honor those who are carrying on his passion for organic living on the earth. In response to the founding of this award, Bill said, "I trust my colleagues in this mission will continue their efforts to realize a sustainable and joyful future for us all." So Steve is carrying on the mission in many ways, including as the executive director and farm director of the Massaro Community Farm in Woodbridge, and through his commitment to Connecticut NOFA and its board. Steve and Bill developed a close relationship when Steve was new at Massaro Farm in 2009, with Bill becoming a great mentor to him in addition to his leadership at Massaro Farm. Steve has been a driving force within Woodbridge, serving as a member of the Woodbridge Agricultural Commission, helping to ensure that Woodbridge remains a place where agriculture thrives and is sustainable, and he now serves on the Board of Selectmen in Woodbridge. Steve has also followed in Bill's footsteps through his long tenure serving Connecticut NOFA. He joined the Connecticut NOFA board in 2012, served as the president of the board from 2018 to 2023, a very difficult time that included the COVID pandemic, and still serves on the board today. Steve is an alumnus of Wesleyan University. He holds a certificate in ecological horticulture from the University of California at Santa Cruz and a certificate in climate change and health from the Yale School of Public Health, demonstrating his commitment to public health and its relationship to the environment. Steve is an excellent farmer. He's kind and generous and fair with his fellow farmers as well as his customers, as I know because I am a member of his CSA. Steve's also the expert voice for organic farming on the Organic Farmstead on WPKN Radio, a spot that Bill used to regularly fill. And he's also a very nice person. We have a citation from state legislators. From Representative Mary Welander of the 114th District, Senator James Maroney of the 14th District, Senator George Cabrera of the 17th District. So it says, in recognition of being the recipient of the 2026 Connecticut NOFA Bill Dusing Organic Living on the Earth Award, this honor reflects the commitment you have displayed to bringing organic food farming and awareness of organic stewardship to the Woodbridge community and beyond. This is a tremendous achievement, and Woodbridge is fortunate to have such a strong advocate as a member of our community. So we are pleased to present the award to Steve Mano.
Thank you, Kim. There's been a lot to reflect on. And I didn't know what I wanted to say, so I looked to Bill's book. So I wanted to share something from here. This is a passage dated April 10th and 11th, 1992, from his book of essays, Living on Earth. It's called The Reasons to Garden. Doing more for ourselves and our community is consistent with what, more and more each day, seems like our only hope. To withdraw money and power as smoothly and quickly as possible from Washington and Wall Street, to shrink the political and financial bureaucracies which have ballooned to fill the space between us and the real world. Get your hands into the soil this weekend. Plant some seeds for your health, pleasure, and sanity. I'm ready for the snow to melt, and per Bill's advice, I'm eager to get my hands in the soil for my own health, pleasure, and sanity. But the words that really resonate with me in that are doing more for each other, doing more for our community. There's an incredible community at this conference,
And it's a community that I've been relying on since I first came to a winter conference in 2010, as I started off at Massaro. And it's a community that I think is more important now than ever. The communities that each of you serve, with the land that you tend, with the work that you do, with the spirit and the intention that you bring, they need you more than ever right now. So I thank you all for what you have done for me over the years, for what you've done for yourselves, for each other, and for your communities, and for what I know you will continue to do for all of our health, our pleasure, and our sanity. Thank you.
Thank you, Steve, for those words. I'd like to go ahead and introduce our keynote speaker for the day, Jim Riddle. For more than 40 years, Jim Riddle has been a leader in the organic community as a farmer, inspector, educator, activist, and political specialist. Jim grew up with organic values on a small farm in Iowa. He and his wife grew perennial fruits at Blue Fruit Farm in Minnesota and started their local farmers market in the 1980s, before local food gained mainstream prominence. Jim worked as an organic inspector for 20 years and was the founding president of the International Organic Inspectors Association. He has trained organic inspectors and spoken at organic conferences throughout the US, Canada, Latin America, Japan, Australia, Russia, Iran, Europe, Jamaica, and elsewhere. Jim served as chair of the National Organic Standards Board and originated the Organic Certification Cost Share Program. Jim and his wife, Joyce Ford, are retired now and live in New Hampshire, where they serve as mentors in the Transition to Organic Partnership Program. Please join me in welcoming Jim Riddle.
Am I live? Yeah, there we go. Okay, well, thank you so much, and it's really an honor to be invited to speak here today, and especially following the Bill Dusing Award. And congratulations, Steve, and thank you for those thoughtful words that you shared. And it's also, I'm just very excited to see the new logo, the Connecticut Grown Certified Organic. So good work there, working with your Department of Agriculture. That's something we did in Minnesota. We for years had a Minnesota Grown logo, and then got the organic word added, and it's been quite popular. Just an interesting thing about Minnesota. It's been in the news a lot lately, unfortunately, but one thing about Minnesota, the Department of Ag is the only state Department of Agriculture in this country that organizes the annual organic conference on their own. They carry the ball. It's a huge trade show, like over 100 vendors, 2 days, and people actually go north in early January. About 600 to 700 people attend this conference, but they don't have anything else to do except fight ice, I guess. Anyway, also I really appreciate this organization's focus on soil health, too, because that's what it's all about, and that's what I'm going to talk a lot about here today. But I'm going to be talking, I'll turn my lectern just a little bit, because I don't have my own screen in front of me, but talking about organic roots and branches. But I'm going to start by first talking about my own roots. I grew up on a small farm in south central Iowa, and we had a pond back in the woods, and I loved to fish. And one day, it was actually a Good Friday, was fishing and caught this about 6-pound bass, and my dad took me into town. We got to get your picture in the paper. And so from then on, if I go back to Colfax, Iowa, I'm still known as the boy who caught the big bass. But it did influence my relationship with the land as well, which I'll explore. Yes, yeah. So here's my mom at Peaceful Pond, as we called it. She was a very strong influence in my life. My father was the person who had the vision for putting a pond there way back, but he was quite a bit older than I was and died when I was 13. So I didn't know him that well, but I was the youngest child, and so my whole high school years was just one-on-one with my mother, and she was a gardener. I learned about composting from her. I learned about mulching from her. I learned where I could find earthworms as fish bait, as under the compost pile. And we didn't get many magazines, but we got organic gardening as a kid. So that's, it just was second nature growing up in the 1970s, reading Organic Gardening magazine, which really was influential to so many people in those years. And then I moved to southeast Minnesota after I'd graduated from Grinnell College. I have degrees in biology and political science and taught school for a while, but then moved up to southeast Minnesota and joined a land cooperative, an intentional community that was already going on at the time, but it was all organic, 360 acres with households scattered around, people building their own owner-built homes, etc., renewable energy, and married a beautiful woman, Joyce Ford, who I'm fortunate to still be with. But I thought you'd enjoy my braids there. And then we have two daughters, Laura and Sonia. The older girl is a medical doctor in St. Paul now, and the other one married a guy in New Hampshire. And when we retired, we'd already spent a lot of time with Laura's girls, and Sonia, the younger one, was not going to be moving back to the Midwest. We were ready to retire, and so in 2020, we moved to New Hampshire. So we're Hillsboro, have a lake house, about 20 minutes away from Sonia, and now she has a 5-year-old and 8-year-old girl. So it's really been a valuable part of our life, but we gave up our farming habits to do that. But when we were there in Minnesota, we tore down an old barn, reused the oak beams, the foundation, the limestone, and built our own home, south-facing, passive solar, wood heat, with solar electricity. We also had a small wind generator. So we lived off-grid for 25 years. And during that time, we went from raising vegetables, and then I started doing organic inspections, and then training other inspectors. I'll talk more about that. But that was all from our off-grid home. Ran that organization, and this was before the internet, before cell phones. It was a big deal when we got a fax machine, because we could communicate with people in Australia and Japan in the middle of the night. But anyway, this was the home we built there. But we really lived our lives very close to the land. We did about 11 acres of mixed produce, so vegetables and flowers, and worked with a few other growers, organized the Winona Farmers Market on the banks of the Mississippi River. There hadn't been a farmers market in that town, and right from the beginning, we were all organic, the 4 different growers, but we didn't want to limit it to that. We wanted to be open to anybody, but they had to be within a 50-mile radius of Winona. They had to grow it or process it themselves. So it truly was a local foods market. And it has been. They've maintained those same rules, and it is the place to be on Saturday mornings in Winona. It is a busy, thriving market to this day. So I'm very proud of the contributions I made there. But I said I did a lot of organic inspections, and primarily from Michigan to the Dakotas. I did some in Pennsylvania, but got to, you get good insight into who people are and why they're farming organically. And I always like to ask, just for conversation, and there are a number of different kind of elements. One is that picture I showed earlier with the long hair, the back to the landers, And that's a very strong element in the organic community, especially in the policy-making area. People who wanted to bring their education to bear and to make things change. But a really solid demographic in the organic community, in my experience, has always been what I call the salt of the earth Christians. The people who understand that God is telling us to be stewards of the creation. And that's just the way things are. And they live those values so close to the land. And this couple just represents that with their wisdom and the beautiful gardens that they had. But after I'd been doing inspections for a while, I got asked to train other inspectors. And then, back then, there were different certifying agencies operating in the same geographic area that would use the same inspectors, even though they worked for a different certifier on a different day. So we'd go to the different trainings that the certifiers would put on, and we're like, hey, see you again. We need our own organization. In the evenings with beer and popcorn, we'd start talking smart. We need to have our own organization because these certifiers, they're not meeting our needs, not our educational needs, not our professional development needs. And so my supposed friends drafted me to chair this effort to form first a steering committee and then a board of directors. And we had representation from all over the U.S., from Canada, from Mexico, from Costa Rica on that first board. So it always had been international in scope. But who knew that there was such a wide open niche needing to be filled to help bring uniformity, bring professionalism to the people who are out there visiting the farms and intruding on people's lives, asking lots of questions. So this is just a group of training students at a course we did in Maine one year. This is hosted on an Amish farm in Pennsylvania. But before long, we started to get requests to go to Japan, to go to other parts of the world. And it was interesting because in Japan, I think I taught 6 courses over the years in Japan. Many of the students in suits, and they're all in their seats 10 minutes before class starts, ready to go. That wasn't the case in Latin America or in Australia, I will say. But Japan, very, very rigorous, very focused. I had the opportunity to meet with the Vice Minister of Agriculture. At that time, Japan was just developing their national organic regulations like we were in the U.S. They couldn't understand that first proposed rule we put out, or the USDA put out, and we rejected. I'll talk more about that in a minute. But one thing I always liked and really appreciated in my time in Japan is to take the time to visit Shinto shrines. And for those that aren't aware, the Shinto shrines are always in a very natural area, very humble, just walking paths. And if you're Japanese, you're Shinto by default, which essentially, my understanding is, you're of the earth. You're a natural being. You can choose what religion you layer on top of that, but you're Shinto. You're of the earth. And it was just a great place to go for some reflection, some nature bathing, as it's become now known, but just to be in touch with nature, with the earth. But that's a fundamental root I found to the Japanese approach to organic, is that it's consistent with this essential belief of being of the earth. We also did one training in Russia, very different culture. Everything was just chaos because this was 1994, shortly after the breakup of the Soviet Union, and people had been so siloed to just do one thing. Thinking about problem solving or holistic understanding was very challenging, as well as just the ethics of confidential information. As an inspector, we hear lots of things. We have to keep it under our hats. But the Russian mode prior to that was any secret you have is yours to use to your advantage. It's your angle. And the other thing that was a challenge was when you go visit someone, and we visited a number of farms, first thing is a shot of vodka to welcome you. And we had to try and train people to wait till after you've done the inspection, then a shot, but not first thing. Anyway, we also did several trainings in Australia, and yeah, there the certifiers were at each other's throats in a very competitive way, and having us come in to train the inspectors from the different certifiers really helped kind of diffuse some of the tension. But yeah, I mentioned that this was a surprise to me, that I like to stay on time and start on time, but in Australia, and I know I love to generalize, but the start time is when you show up, and that's when you start visiting with each other. And you're not really ready to kind of get in your places till a good 10 minutes. You've got to kind of ease into things. And boy, they like to carry on in the evenings too. So in the late 1990s, I was serving on an additional board, the International Organic Accreditation Service, that accredits certification bodies worldwide. It's like an arm of IFOAM, the International Federation of Organic Agriculture Movements. Well, through that, there was one of our members who worked for the Ministry of Agriculture in Finland. In Finland, it's a government certification. It's not private bodies or nonprofits or farmer groups. It's the government-delivered certification. But they saw the need for more uniformity, and it was actually the Ministry of Environment funded us, and I put together an international team to write the International Organic Inspection Manual. And that really has been kind of the blueprint for how inspections are conducted worldwide since then. But I had the opportunity in 2001, when the project was complete, to go to Finland and present it officially to the Ministry of the Environment. And also, there just happened to be the IFOAM EU group, which are from all over Europe, were meeting at that same time. So I got swept in with them and got to go to the Sauna Society headquarters of Finland in January at night and do different saunas. And then we walked out, and there's this pier into the Baltic, people jumping into the water at night in January. Of course, it's night most of the day. But and I'm not a good swimmer. I'm like, I saw a rope. And so I grabbed the rope, and I swear I hardly even touched water. Back out. But anyway, no pictures of that. But it was just a great experience. And while I was there, I learned that I had been appointed to the National Organic Standards Board by Bill Clinton on his last day in office. Thanks, Bill. Because my entire 5-year term was then to the George Bush USDA, which was not organic friendly. And that was after the first proposed rule, but at the time when the final rule was ready to get implemented. But one of the things it was mentioned that I was behind the development of an organic certification cost share. And I worked a lot in policy in Minnesota, and there was a state senator, Janet Johnson, who pulled some of us together and said, what can we do to help support organic farmers? And I was working both as a farmer, but also as an inspector. The most common complaint I heard from farms I would inspect, why are we having to pay to show that we're taking care of the earth? I also had participated in various NRCS conservation cost shares for putting in some ponds, doing some fencing, this and that. It's like, couldn't we have a cost share to help reimburse a portion of the certification fee? And so that she directed her staff to write up a bill. We had, let's see, it was a Republican House, a Democratic Senate, and our governor was Jesse Ventura. So we had tripartite system of government. But it was a modest bill. It was a $35,000 appropriation that paid up to 2/3 the cost, up to $200 per farm. But it was the first in the country, and it was quite popular. And before long, let's see, Iowa, Vermont, Montana, and North Carolina, I think, had all implemented other state-run cost shares based on what we had done. And then a good friend of mine was Paul Wellstone, a U.S. Senator. We were actually roommates to the 1988 Democratic National Convention for Jesse Jackson. So it's really been on my mind here since Reverend Jackson passed. But Paul Wellstone was on the Ag Committee in the U.S. Senate and got it in the 2002 Farm Bill. So that really is how it became a national program, which now, when it's fully funded and fully functional, pays 75% up to $750 per certificate. So if you're a crop and livestock, you can get 2 cost shares if you're certified for both of those scopes. But yeah, the only time that program now has been in danger is during the past Trump years, the current Trump years, and we got to fight to just keep it fully funded and keep it functional. But it really does make a difference to the farmers, especially. But yeah, so I had these 5 years. Yeah, 1 year Joyce was doing our taxes, and she said, Jim, do you realize you spent 29 nights in D.C. this past year? Creeps up on you. I didn't know that. And it looks glamorous, but it's a lot of work. But when openings come up, if any of you are at all interested in public policy and putting in hard hours for no pay, I encourage you to put your name in for consideration for the National Organic Standards Board. But so much of the time is spent reviewing inputs that this company or that company thinks they want and they want to sell and they want to. So it's a whole lot of reading technical reports and that kind of stuff, which I was lucky I had a degree in science and could read some of that. But those were very challenging years. And when they ended in 2006, I was offered a position at the University of Minnesota, organic outreach coordinator. And that was just great. It was a half-time position, but part of my role as outreach was organizing field days, writing publications, doing workshops, that kind of stuff. University of Minnesota has, I think, around 1,100 acres certified organic and a 300-head certified organic dairy herd. So there's a lot going on, student organic programs, etc. And then, 1 year I was asked to do a talk at the Minnesota State Fair, and I said, well, what do you want me to talk about? Well, why don't you just talk about what organic is and why should people care? So I drew up a publication and given that many times where I, had literature that's all citations reviewed by faculty, etc., that I could lean on there and really push the organic envelope. In 2014, I received an invitation by email inviting me to speak at an organic conference in Iran, in Tehran. And I thought, yeah, and you've got a Nigerian prince that has money for me too. So I did, but then I started reading it, And there were names of people in Germany and Australia that I knew in the organic community, legit, that were signed up. So I turned it over to a friend of mine who was head of the organic program at USDA, and he said, no way, you know, skull and crossbones type thing. But he turned it over to the State Department. They got back to me and said, by all means, go. Because at that time was under the Obama nuclear accord, and there was a lot of cultural exchanges we'd never heard about. Like the Philadelphia Orchestra had gone and played in Tehran. The wrestling teams had gone back and forth. We had universities working with school districts in Iran to make the schools more earthquake-proof. Too bad they aren't bomb-proof. But anyway, so I went, and I was the only American, and there were, the Europeans, Australians speaking as well. But this is an ancient culture. And it's the birthplace of wheat, of irrigation. I mean, agriculture is fundamental. And then I also was invited back in 2015, the next year. And that year, Vandana Shiva was also on the program. And the first year when I went, change my story. Okay, in that second year, both times they had government officials on the program in the morning part of the conference. When each of them were done speaking, the moderator, who was a famous woman, TV broadcaster, newswoman, would ask them, what is your department going to do to support organic agriculture? Hold them right on, feet to the fire. Well, the second year, the vice president, the woman in the middle there, Ebdekar, she was Minister of Environment, but one of their vice presidents spoke at the conference. And she had known Vandana, and so then we got invited to her office the next day after the conference, and we're given little gifts. But I found it interesting that the level of engagement of the audience was really dynamic. And whenever the speakers would be done, then the speakers would be invited back up front, and there would be an open mic for like an hour and a half of people just asking any kind of questions they wanted. And they did that for us, the outside speakers as well at the end of the day, which made the program run about 4 hours longer than it should have, made supper very late at night. But anyway, the first time I went there, I was there for about a week. They had arranged some tours. So we went to Persepolis, the ancient palace, and just incredible ruins there. But also things like the Shah's Palace or the birthplace or the mausoleum of Hafez. But when I was invited back, and they contacted me, I said, yes, I'd like to come again, but I'd like to see some organic farms this time. So they lined up a tour with the group of the speakers who could stay. And we visited organic pomegranate operations, pistachios, melt in your mouth, buttery, and very sophisticated organic production systems where they were raising their own beneficials and really tracking every kind of pest and disease. This is a fig operation where those trees are older than the United States. They're 300 years old, those trees, and still producing figs. And those aren't irrigated, but just in the next valley over was aqueducts that had been there for 1,200 years that are still functional for irrigating the crops. And yeah, the dates, oh man, just incredible, and so much variety in the different kinds of dates. But anyway, because Iran is in the news and under attack, I just wanted to show a few scenes and share a little bit of what we don't hear about at all, ancient culture of Persia. During those same years, Joyce and I were doing work in a very different kind of black and white difference in Jamaica, working with organic farmers. And these are people that live very close to the land. The Ital belief that the food, when it's raised in harmony with the earth in organic methods, has a vitality. It's Ital, it's vital. Right. And so I love so many of our connections there. And the fellow in the middle there with the white hat, a dear friend, Tony Cleese, passed away a few years ago, but a leader in the organic world from North Carolina. He was director of their Carolina Farm Stewardship Association for many years, but also did a lot of work in the Caribbean. So yeah, really miss Tony, but we helped bring various tools to the growers there, and but I'll tell you, paperwork, that's not their strength. You know, and we were trying to teach about certification, and that's just a lot of bureaucracy. It's contrary. So that's a major challenge. But we did get to go to Bob Marley his home in Kingston, or former home. And also, I got to visit a ganja plantation because I had been looking for a particular seed strain called Lamb's Breath, which was supposedly Bob Marley's favorite, kind of legendary Jamaican. And we're up in the grill and met a guy. Yeah, we grow Lamb's Breath. Let me take you to the plantation. So on Easter morning, he picked Joyce and I up, and we drove way up in the hills and then hiked way up further, and there's about 4 acres. These guys living in his little shed and growing their herb. And in the corner, they had a few males where they produce their own seed. And so I bought some seed from them and learned in 2022 that the DEA in the U.S. ruled that any cannabis seeds are hemp because the seeds themselves do not contain THC. It didn't matter what they came from or what they grew up into, the seeds were hemp. And so I got a USDA hemp grower license. I grow out the plants. I now am in 7th generation of breeding of this particular strain, just selecting the best of the best to move forward. And so now I have this business, Lamb's Breath Seed. And I do have some seeds with me if anyone's interested in a show special later. But anyway, back to policy, because the whole thing I'm doing will end November 13th of this year. Because in the bill that refunded the government last fall, the continuing resolution, there was language about the intoxicating hemp derivatives, banning all the edibles, all the drinks, all that stuff, nationwide. That's all going to be banned come November 13th, unless this is changed. But there's one line in there saying that any seeds that are from a mother plant that's over 0.3% THC are no longer hemp. So that will end the interstate commerce of cannabis seeds. And I'm in New Hampshire, so I don't even have domestic market. So anyway, this may be my last growing year of this little project, but it's been fun. And is rooted in this organic volunteer work we did in Jamaica. But the real work we did during those later years in Minnesota was our Blue Fruit Farm. And I did a virtual presentation during last year's conference on blue but not blueberries. I talked about all the other fruits we grew there at Blue Fruit Farm. So blueberries, but I wouldn't talk about that. I would talk about aronia berries, which is the black chokeberry. Very high antioxidant, but also astringent. You need to process them. You don't just eat them raw out of hand unless you really like to pucker. Whoops, did we miss? Oh, yeah, I moved on its own. Something happened. So, yeah, and also elderberries, which antiviral, very healthy. I'm not doing that. I turn my back on it. Black currants, and then honeyberries. And that's the one I'd just like to say a few words about, is if you're not familiar with honeyberries, you should be. They are perennial. You do need 2 plants of a different variety as a pollinizer, but they're both productive. You can fresh eat them like a blueberry, but they have a little more zing. They're a hascap. They're in the honeysuckle genus, but they're not invasive. They've been grown for millennia in Hokkaido, in Siberia. They're zone 3 hardy, so they're very hardy. But the best thing about them is they ripen in early June, before there's any problems with the spotted wing Drosophila that are hitting the blueberries so bad. So they're done by the time the SWD shows up. They're tedious to pick, but they're very high value. So anyway, just wanted to put in a plug for honeyberries. And we didn't grow all these kids, but we had a lot of school groups come, and that was so fun to see kids out there picking blueberries, of course, and just running around and having a great time. But yeah, so here's a young couple and their daughter that have taken over Blue Fruit Farm when Joyce and I moved to New Hampshire in 2020. And they're doing a great job with it. One thing you see in the background, well, you see in the foreground, there's deer fencing, there's raccoon fencing, and then the bird netting. We were losing thousands of dollars until we put up this bird netting system. So anyway, just something to think about if you're serious about getting into fruits. Is at least in the Mississippi Flyway, we had tremendous pressure from robins and cedar waxwings. So really, I mean, all of our roots are organic because we are children of the earth. The earth is organic. We are natural beings. We need clean air, clean water, clean food to survive. And we're just part of Earth's ecosystem, and we rely on its health for our survival. And people have lost touch of that very fact, and I really appreciated what Bill Dusing had to say on that same subject. That healthy living soil has the ability to sequester tremendous amounts of carbon. And civilizations that have ignored, that have abused their soil, have collapsed. And organic feeds the soil, not the crop. So the fundamental principle of organic has always been a healthy soil leads to healthy plants, healthy animals, healthy people, and a healthy planet. That's really the fundamental, what organic is all about. And so just a little history here. You've probably heard all this, but the term organic, not the concept of organic, is indigenous. It's practiced on every continent where humans live. But Englishman Sir Albert Howard developed these organic growing methods really based on what the locals were doing in India in the early 1900s. Focused on soil health, compost, manures, cover crops, the fundamentals. Same time, Rudolf Steiner working on biodynamic methods in Europe, and based on the concept of the earth is a living organism that needs to be replenished and revitalized through organic means. And then it was really J.I. Rodale who adopted these concepts in the U.S. on the experimental organic farm in Pennsylvania and was the first to coin that term organic farming. And it's based on the organic matter in the soil. In Great Britain, similar things happening. Soil Association was formed in 1946, right after the war, and has been a leader worldwide since that time. And in the East, you had the macrobiotic movement. George Osawa, stressing how people should eat simple diets of organic foods. That cured his own illnesses, and he did workshops and seminars all over the world teaching these macrobiotic principles and promoting organic. And then in the 1960s, just Rachel Carson's book, of course, Silent Spring, really raised people's awareness of the dangers, the impacts of chemical agriculture, and the interest in organic foods has just continued to increase the more people learn about the dangers and the impacts, the real world impacts of conventional systems. So some of the history more related to the regulation of organic. So there were different farmer organizations forming in the early 60s all the way through the late 80s throughout the country, focused just on the U.S. for now, developing their own sets of standards. And by 1989, there were 30 different U.S. states that had laws defining what organic was, but they were different. Like in the Midwest, you had to have a 3-year transition before you could qualify, whereas in California, it was just 1 year. So you could have magic organic coming into being sold that didn't meet the local standards. So the organic community basically asked the Congress to, we want to be regulated. Well, I don't know if that's good yet or not. But the Organic Foods Production Act was passed in 1990. So it took a few years before USDA even established the first Organic Standards Board. And in 1995, I think it was 93 when they first started meeting, and then by 95, they had developed this definition. They defined organic agriculture as an ecological production management system, promotes and enhances biodiversity, biological cycles, and soil biological activity based on minimal use of off-farm inputs and on management practices that restore, maintain, and enhance ecological harmony. So you see a very holistic vision, a definition of organic agriculture. The 15-member volunteer National Organic Standards Board came up with that. Well, in 1997, USDA issued their first proposed rule. They largely ignored the recommendations of the NOSB in writing that. They ignored existing state statutes, existing certification standards. They would have allowed genetic engineering, the use of antibiotics, sewage sludge, irradiation, the feeding of slaughter byproducts, and it received over 275,000 negative comments and was withdrawn. It came out on December 21st of 1997. Earlier, I showed a picture of me with the Vice Minister of Agriculture of Japan. I was scheduled to go to Japan in early January and teach a training course, but also to give a big public lecture and then this meeting with the Vice Minister. USDA dropped this rule right before Christmas, proposed rule. So I spent, and I knew I was leaving, I think it was January 10th. I spent my entire Christmas, New Year's holidays tearing that apart, line by line. Here's what's wrong. Here's what the NOSB said. Here's how to fix it, paragraph by paragraph, and submitted that and left. Well, that just happened to kind of become the playbook for the 275,000 comments. And it came down to the big three, the GMOs, blah, 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 radiation, sewage sludge, I think. And it was a lot of postcards, but the substantive comments aligned with what I put in writing just because I knew I was leaving town. And I had to get it done. This was going to be my chance. This is the front page of that first one. I already went through, but I didn't show you this, the seal that they proposed. I doubt if many of you remember or saw that. Here's what their first organic logo proposed was. Yeah, doesn't it kind of look like that combined with that? I mean, really, is that something you're wanting people to be attracted to? A fallout shelter covered by a not sign? And I knew they could do better because they had just released this Redura, which was to go on products that have been irradiated. Looks kind of like, I want to buy that. Yeah, so they could do better. Anyway, and they did. They withdrew that first proposed rule, fired or moved some people out, moved some organic, knowledgeable people in, and came up with a good final rule. So that came out in 2000, and then I got on the NOSB, and we adopted principles of organic production. And then October 2002, the final rule took effect. And that meant that the USDA organic logo could begin appearing in the marketplace. So, what does it mean? Now, that's a lot better, isn't it? They did improve that logo. I just can't believe that first one. Anyway, so some of the things in the law, Organic Foods Production Act, require that every operation complete an organic plan. That's your key to getting certified. In that plan, the law says that the plan shall contain provisions designed to foster soil fertility, primarily through the management of organic content of the soil, proper tillage. That's all true to those roots I talked about, right? And then it shall not include any production practices that are inconsistent with this chapter. That's what the law says. And the rule goes further. It says a producer must select, implement tillage that maintain or improve physical, chemical, biological condition of the soil and minimize erosion. Must manage nutrients through crop rotations, cover crops, application of plant and animal materials. Must manage plant and animal materials to maintain or improve soil organic matter content. Those are all in the rule that go further than the law. And the rule defines organic a little simpler than the NOSB did in 1995. It says that organic production, it's not organic agriculture, it's production, is a system managed to respond to site-specific conditions by integrating cultural, biological, mechanical practices that foster the cycling of resources, promote ecological balance, and conserve biodiversity. It all sounds good, but there's one word missing: soil. Which is very interesting, and that's come back to bite us. I'll talk about that. This is just the beginning of the NOSB principles that I helped draft, and we unanimously adopted. Organic agriculture, ecological production system, promotes and enhances biodiversity, biological, and soil biological activity. It's designed to optimize soil biological activity and maintain long-term fertility. However, we have a branch of the organic tree which is not connected to the organic roots, and that is the hydroponic branch that has nothing to do with soil. There's a growing media. It may be coconut core or coconut husks, fibers. It may just be roots in water in a nutrient solution, nutrient soup. This type of production practice is being certified, as I'm sure you've heard, especially if you tune in to the Real Organic Project. It is only allowed in the United States. So we have massive operations, greenhouses and container operations, acres covered in plastic in Canada, in Mexico, in Peru, in the Netherlands, that are producing these organic crops that cannot be sold as organic in their own countries. But they're flooding our market because they can get a lot more for it. I'll show that a little later. So these type of productions are incredibly energy intensive. They're industrial facilities. They're not farms. They generate tons of plastic waste. They don't sequester carbon in the soil because they're not in the soil. They cover it with plastic. They do nothing to promote ecological balance. They don't conserve biodiversity. So how do they meet that definition? They don't comply with the soil building requirements in the law, and they don't comply with the crop rotation requirements that are in the regulation, and they really deceive consumers when they buy these products thinking they're buying organic products. And they undermine the real organic farmers who are meeting every bit of the law and the rule and producing healthier foods. And I'm not even going into their nutrient content, but when you grow something in a nutrient soup, it's not going to ever be the same as in biologically healthy living soil. It's just not. It can't be. It doesn't have the flavor. So anyway, just a review. Organic agriculture, organic farming, long, rich global roots based in indigenous knowledge, building soil organic matter, ecosystem health, biological activity, biodiversity, cycling of resources, based on ecological systems, not just the avoidance of prohibited substance or the use of approved materials. And that has been the hang up. There's just such a difference in perspective. We come with a holistic view and rooted in our history of organic agriculture and are confronted with people who just want to know what's allowed. I want to switch from the chemical recipe to the organic recipe. I want to use organic inputs. No, organic, there aren't such things. There are inputs that are allowed for use in organic farming, but it's just switching a recipe. And the USDA, of course, comes down on the reductionist side and drive up the market because there's a demand. And if it can be done simply and with big money, that's what they have really gotten behind. But in true organic production, rooted production, you see farmers just taking this beautiful cover crop of hairy vetch here, feeding the soil. That's all it's grown for, is to feed the soil. Or making compost from, we would chip up all of our prunings, all the grass clippings, and then mix with some local horse manure, and then making compost to feed back to all of our berry plants. You see tremendous biodiversity on organic farms, whether it's native plants or intentional cover crop plants like buckwheat there, clovers, etc. And there's research showing that every study done of real organic farming, that at every level of the food chain, from bacteria to mammals, is just so much more biodiverse. The ecological health is functioning on organic farms, and that's not the case on conventional operations, just deserts. So what are some of the organic branches? Now, well, those are root crops, but it's a cute picture anyway. So now, Dana, I've got a little video I'd just like to share. And what time are we? We're doing good. From the University of Wisconsin. I know it's a ways from here, but at least it won't offend anyone at any of the universities in the Northeast because it's out of your zone. But it's about 3 minutes. So hit it any time. See if you can get it to come up and play. It seems like a
What does UW actually know? Well, we know mathematics, medicine, business, computer science, history, economics, astrophysics, microbiology, music, and over 150 other things that we have majors, minors, and graduate programs in. But there's something you might not know that UW knows. Organic agriculture. Yeah, we know organic, and we've known it for a long time, starting way back in 1911, when a UW professor and goatee fan published a mind-blowing book about traditional farming in Asia that folks who really like organic farming have really, really liked for over 100 years. But what's happening today at UW?
Well, time. But let's start with the people.
There are researchers working on crops like
potatoes,
Wheat. Oats.
Barley.
Yeah.
Daucus carota. Carrots. That's what I said.
cannabis,
Cannabis.
cannabis,
Sweet corn.
tomatoes,
Beets.
There are UW economists hanging out on organic dairies, entomologists walking organic cranberry bogs, and sociologists biking around farmers markets. We have not one, but two endowed professorships in organic agriculture at UW. Thanks, Cliff Bar and Organic Valley. In all, we have more than 40 staff and faculty who do work in organics. So what else is happening around campus? There's the UW Organic Collaborative, a place for all people and things organic at UW. We have 34-year-old trials comparing organic to non-organic production systems.
He was started in 1989 too.
Programs that make amazing resources and host awesome events for organic grain farmers. And collaboratives that throw these awesome parties where farmers, plant breeders, and chefs all get together to figure out how to grow lots of food that tastes incredible. And what about the student experience? How do they get in on the organic fun? There's a student organic farm where multiple student organizations get their hands in the dirt and grow food together.
And then we give it all away each week, all growing season.
Students can go organic in the classroom too, with the nation's first in-person undergraduate certificate in organic agriculture. 3 core courses, over 40 electives, and tons of hands-on experiences. And if you know you want to farm, we've got you covered, with the country's first registered apprenticeship in organic vegetable production. So yeah, UW knows organic, and we know that there's a place for you here. Visit uworganic.wisc.edu for more information, and we can't wait to see you at UW.
I just came across that recently, and I just thought I would share it because it kind of fit the theme, and it's just branching out. So much enthusiasm, and I was paid nothing by UW to show that. But yeah, some really exciting things going on, and there are in a lot of other universities as well. But one of the things that we'll be wrapping up this year that I think has helped us branch out is the TOP program, the Transition to Organic Partnership program, where experienced organic producers are paired with people entering or people who have not yet gotten certified. And yeah, I heard the reports, some great numbers here, expanding the number of certified organic operations in Connecticut through this program. But there's just lots of resources that the Northeast top programs have put together. And I think, yeah, there's still one more round. So if you are interested, haven't taken advantage, you can still apply, I think, through the end of March as either a mentor or a mentee. But I think it's been a great way to build community and to expand our reach, our branches. So I've been a mentor for, this is my 4th operation here. One was a organic beef processing facility in northern New Hampshire that did get certified, so that was very rewarding and successful. The other 2, one was a food hub that never answered my calls, and the other one was a very small operation. We worked together, and it just became apparent they didn't want to expand to the scale of even meriting getting certified. They already had their markets, but it still was good, community building. This couple has currently raspberries and strawberries, all managed organically, but has never gotten certified. They're near the coast, near Exeter, and they're really fun to work with because they are dead serious. They've already submitted their application to MOFCA, and they're going to get certified. So it's really fun when you work with people who are motivated and who are focused. But also a way that Joyce and I have been able to branch out is last September, Neil Young came and played in Guilford, New Hampshire. When we'd heard he was coming, we got tickets right away because I'm a big Neil Young fan, have been all my life. But then, 2 days before the concert, NOFA New Hampshire, Joyce is the treasurer, she's on the board of NOFA New Hampshire, contacted us and said, we're looking for someone to staff a booth for NOFA at the Neil Young concert, and there's free tickets. And well, we already have tickets, so we'll go and we'll do the booth. Well, we got better tickets, but everywhere that Neil played on this Love Earth tour, they set up a Love Earth village of these tents, tables, everything was there. We just had to bring the literature. And then we had wristbands as volunteers, and we actually got to go backstage and eat this. He had all organic food and local seafood for the musicians and staff. And he also required that at this Bank of New Hampshire pavilion, Meadowbrook, that only local drinks could be sold. So there was no Coke, there was no Coors Light. It was all local beverages that they were selling. They were selling well, but it was just, and the crowd was so supportive of organic farming. And that's what Neil has always said at Farm Aid. If you're not eating organic food, you're not supporting family farmers. But it was, he can rock. I mean, he can still rock. So it was so much fun. But yeah, we were pretty close. But anyway, what else can we do to help grow these roots and branches? Well, one is to just avoid buying these fake foods, these fake organic. I mean, they're real food, but they're hydroponic. They're not grown in soil. So Driscoll's, Wholesome Harvest, Superior Fresh, and there's various store brands that just ask questions. But like here, this is the Driscoll's supposed organic blackberries. Here's their regular blackberries. Look at the price difference. 12 ounces of the conventional ones for $6 versus 6 ounces for $5. So that's a pretty good markup on your hydroponic crop by just getting that organic logo on there. Anyway, you don't have to support that. But yeah, and I've heard this already, just growing a garden, learning to put food up, just being in touch with where food comes from and the growers, respecting, really supporting the growers that you know and trust, whether they're certified or not. And seeking products that are certified by the Real Organic Project, because that does require grown in soil. It does require animals that are on pasture instead of 10,000 dairy herds in a confinement that are getting certified as organic. And then purchase products that don't have hydroponic components. So things like tree fruits, sweet corn, peas, potatoes, corn, all that kind of stuff that there's not growing in a lab somewhere or some kind of industrial facility. But applying political pressure on USDA, White House, Congress, state departments of agriculture, certifiers, to end this fraudulent certification that's going on, but also to continue to fully fund the National Organic Certification Cost Share Program, supporting investment in organic research, so University of Connecticut can have a video like Wisconsin did in a few years, but just expanding the support for research. And believe it or not, there's Representative Dan Newhouse from Washington State, Republican, who's co-chair of the Organic Caucus in the House, now has a bill attempting to eliminate the 3-year transition requirement. If the soil or growing medium is tested and found with no prohibited substances. So it's all about substances, once again. So there's an effort to streamline what's already green-lighted, and that is the hydroponic, without having to wait 3 years. But getting informed. So the Real Organic Project just has tremendous podcasts, literature, information available, and that's their logo. And then also, like I mentioned, the TOP program, the Soil Health Initiative happening with CT NOFA, but the National Organic Coalition. And NOFAs are part of that coalition as really one of the most powerful voices in DC that understands and supports this perspective, as well as the Organic Farmers Association. I was on the steering committee when that was formed, but it was the time we were getting out of farming, so I didn't continue in a role there. And then Rodale has a regenerative organic certification program as well. But Rodale has stayed true to those roots. And then just local field days, the farmers markets, just being out there, being in touch. So yeah, this is OFA, Organic Farmers Association. So if you're an active organic farmer, I definitely encourage you to check out OFA, because it brings the voice of organic farmers to Washington, but also helps keep you informed. So what else? Well, let's honor our roots, as you do with your Bill Dusing Award. And I just want to say a few words, at least show a picture of some people who passed in the last year, some real leaders in the organic community. Joan Gussow, author, professor, speaker. She served on the NOSB. Fred Kirschman, North Dakota grain farmer, seminarian, professor, author, and also served on the National Organic Standards Board. I knew Fred very well, visited his farm a number of times. But Michael Sly, I don't know if any of you have heard, but he was the first chair of the National Organic Standards Board. He also was really the person who pulled the National Organic Coalition together. He's from North Carolina, originally from Texas, but just had a way of drawing people together, very thoughtful, but also like to tie a bow around it. Let's know when we're done talking and what we've agreed on. But, just a wonderful human being. And then recently, Elaine Ingham of the Soil Food Web, and did a lot of work with compost and compost teas, but she recently passed as well. I just wanted to acknowledge them and just really think about our roots, touching the soil, making compost, planting a garden, building community, listen to nature, love the earth, and we care for those we love. We're all part of the web of life. Thank you.